I want you to look around your room, or just look at the phone in your hand. Everything you see, your computer, the car parked outside, the power grid keeping the lights on, the satellites orbiting Earth, they all rely on one single invisible, microscopic item, the semiconductor chip. They are the modern world's oil. They are the new gold. And right now, these tiny pieces of silicon have become the single most volatile, important, and dangerous weapon in the escalating geopolitical conflict between the world's superpowers. For decades, we lived in a world where technology and trade flowed freely. It was a beautiful, efficient global supply chain. But that era is over. Now, a new kind of war is being fought. It's not fought with tanks or troops. It's fought with export controls, with technical specifications, with the power to simply say, you cannot have this chip. The United States has moved to essentially cut off one of its primary rivals from the most advanced microprocessors on Earth. This isn't just about slowing down a company. It's about crippling a nation's entire technological future, its AI, its quantum computing, and its next-generation military power. So, how did a simple piece of silicon become the ultimate strategic weapon? Why is controlling the chip supply more potent than controlling oil fields? And what happens when a global economy built on collaboration suddenly decides to prioritize national security over free trade? Stick around, because we diving deep into the microscopic battleground that will define the rest of this century, the tech war for semiconductor supremacy. To understand the stakes, we first have to appreciate the chips themselves. A semiconductor, or microchip, is not just a component, it's the brain of every digital device. Think about the difference between a simple calculator from 1980 and a modern smartphone. That difference is measured in nanometers. The most advanced chips, the ones we're talking about in this tech war, have transistors so small that you could line up roughly 4,000 of them across the width of a single human hair. We're talking about a 3 nanometer or 5 nanometer scale. These advanced chips are the core requirement for two things that terrify global powers. First, artificial intelligence. Training massive AI models, the ones that power facial recognition, complex military simulations, and scientific breakthroughs requires an insane amount of computing power, primarily delivered by specialized chips called GPUs or graphics processing units. No cutting-edge chips, no cutting-edge AI. Second, the modern military. Every aspect of a modern military, from hypersonic missiles to precision-guided drones, from electronic warfare to complex satellite systems, requires the latest and greatest chips for speed, efficiency, and stealth. Lag behind in chip technology, and you lag behind in military capability. This isn't about making phones cheaper. It's about who gets to define the future of warfare, intelligence, and economic power. That's why this is more than just a trade dispute. It's a strategic chokehold. But here's the crucial twist. Manufacturing these chips is not like assembling a car. It's not like making steel. It is arguably the most complex manufacturing process humanity has ever devised. You might think a single chip is made in a single place, say, an American factory. Wrong. The chip industry is a complex, beautiful, and terrifying global supply chain with single points of failure scattered across the planet. Imagine a 5-act play where every actor is completely indispensable. Act 1. The design. The blueprints for the most advanced chips are overwhelmingly designed by American companies like NVIDIA and AMD. They own the intellectual property, the software tools known as electronic design automation, and the core architecture. Act 2. The equipment. To actually etch those nanometer-scale circuits onto silicon wafers, you need the most advanced machine on Earth, the EUV lithography machine. And virtually the only company that makes this machine is ASML in the Netherlands. They are a true global bottleneck. Without ASML, you cannot make the most advanced chips. Period. Act 3. The fabrication. The actual manufacturing, the fabs, are dominated by TSMC in Taiwan and Samsung in South Korea. TSMC, in particular, produces the overwhelming majority of the world's leading-edge chips, those 3 nanometer and 5 nanometer wonders. Act 4. The materials. Specialized chemicals, photoresists, and substrates needed for the process often come from specific firms in Japan or Germany. And Act 5. The assembly. Finally, the chips are packaged and tested, primarily in Southeast Asia. This interconnected chain is a marvel of global cooperation, but it's also a house of cards. If any single country in that chain, the US for design, the Netherlands for tools, or Taiwan for manufacturing, decides to pull its piece, the entire global supply of advanced chips collapses. And that is exactly what is happening right now. Historically, export controls were simple. Don't sell weapons or nuclear material to certain countries. They were tools of security. But in October 2022, the US administration dropped what many analysts called the atomic bomb of commerce. It was a set of sweeping new export control rules aimed directly at crippling a specific rival its ability to develop high-end computing. The goal wasn't just to stop the sale of specific chips. The goal was to block the entire ecosystem of innovation. The rules had three main pillars. Pillar 1. The chip wall. The US imposed strict limits on the export of high-end AI chips, like certain powerful NVIDIA and AMD GPUs to companies in the target nation. These are the chips needed for AI training. Instant roadblock. Pillar 2. The tool ban. This was the devastating move. The US rules dictated that any company anywhere in the world that uses used technology, software, or equipment to make advanced chips cannot sell those chips to the target. This meant the Netherlands, ASML, and Japan as specialized equipment makers, who all rely on American-designed components and software, were essentially brought under American control. The US was leveraging its intellectual property dominance to control production worldwide. Pillar 3. The talent trap. Perhaps the most personal blow. The rules restricted US citizens and green card holders from working for targeted firms on advanced chip development without a license. This was designed to halt the flow of crucial human capital and expertise. Think of it like this: the US didn't just stop selling cars. It stopped selling the steel, the robotics, the design software, and the lead engineers needed to build any car. The intention behind these rules is clear: to maintain a technological gap so wide that the target nation can never catch up in the AI and military arms race. But every strategic action generates an equal and opposite reaction. The global ripple effect of the October rules was immediate and massive. For the nation targeted by these restrictions, the reaction was a potent mix of outrage and pure, unadulterated resolve. This wasn't just a setback. It was a call to arms in the tech world. First, the checkbook came out. We're talking about an estimated trillions of dollars poured into accelerating their domestic semiconductor industry. The goal is clear and ambitious: build a completely independent supply chain from the ground up, achieving what they call chip sovereignty. The thinking is simple: if you can't buy the tools, you figure out how to build them yourself, no matter the cost. This is, without a doubt, the most expensive industrial subsidy program in human history. It bet the farm moment for an entire nation's technological future. But it's not all about catching up on the most advanced, bleeding-edge chips. While the path to things like 5-nanometer chips is now blocked, they are doubling down on what are known as legacy or mature chips. Think 28-nanometer or 40-nanometer. These might sound old, but they are the workhorses of the modern world. They power everything from the control systems in our factories and the electronics in our cars to the smarts in our home appliances. By aiming to dominate the market for these less advanced but absolutely vital chips, they're creating a new kind of economic leverage. It's a strategic pivot that could disrupt global supply chains in a completely different, but equally impactful, way. And then came the counterpunches. The conflict has naturally prompted retaliatory measures. The targeted nation has already restricted the export of critical raw materials like gallium and germanium. Most people haven't heard of them, but these elements are essential for making things like fiber optics, satellites, and specialized semiconductors. The signal is crystal clear: if you choke our supply of high-tech tools, we can choke your supply of fundamental materials. The battle for the 21st century is rapidly becoming a complex resource war, fought not on battlefields with tanks, but in microscopic components and with control over obscure metals. This whole episode marks a fundamental shift away from the era of globalization and toward a new reality of decoupling, or, as some call it, de-risking. Companies are now caught in the middle, forced to choose sides, duplicate their supply chains across different political blocs, or face massive regulatory and financial hurdles. The age of one global happy supply chain is over. Now, you absolutely cannot talk about the chip war without zooming in on the geopolitical pressure cooker that is Taiwan. On a map, it's a small island. In the world of technology, it is the center of the universe. And at its heart is TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. They aren't just leaders. They are the undisputed heavyweight champions of advanced chip manufacturing. They possess what many have come to call the silicon shield. Let me put this in perspective. TSMC doesn't just make a lot of the chips for our phones. They make the vast majority of all high-end chips that power AI, advanced networking, and critical military hardware for the entire Western world. If TSMC were to suddenly go offline, whether from a natural disaster, a massive cyber attack, or, most terrifyingly, a military conflict, the global economy wouldn't just stumble. It would instantly shatter. Estimates suggest the initial economic shockwave could exceed $2 trillion. That would make the 2008 financial crisis look like a minor speed bump. This incredible concentration of technological power in one of the world's most politically contested regions is, arguably, the single greatest vulnerability of our modern global system. Think of it this way. The US and its allies control the brain, the chip designs, and the advanced software tools. But Taiwan, through TSMC, controls the hands, the unparalleled ability to actually manufacture these designs at scale. This is precisely why the semiconductor war isn't just an economic tiff. It's the central driving force behind military strategy in the Indo-Pacific. Protecting Taiwan has become synonymous with protecting the flow of advanced chips that our entire civilization now runs on. And by the same token, attacking Taiwan, or even just blockading it, becomes a weapon of mass economic destruction that could be wielded against the entire West. The stark realization of this single point of failure has sparked a frantic, multi-billion-dollar race in the United States and Europe to bring advanced chip manufacturing back to their own shores. But the real question is, after decades of letting this capability move overseas, can they actually do it? Can they rebuild from scratch what took Taiwan decades to perfect? Recognizing the danger, governments have launched massive industrial policies to incentivize building domestic fabrication plants, or fabs. The US passed the CHIPS Act, dedicating over $50 billion to bring semiconductor manufacturing back to American soil. Europe is doing the same with its own European CHIPS Act. The idea makes sense. Move production closer to home, create backups, and stop relying on fragile supply chains. But building a modern fab is an insane challenge. A single cutting-edge plant can cost over $20 billion. They need colossal amounts of power and, critically, ultra-pure water, sometimes millions of gallons a day. You can't just build them anywhere. And then there's the talent. Plus, companies like TSMC and Samsung thrive because they have hundreds of specialized suppliers clustered around them. Replicating that entire ecosystem in Arizona or Germany takes decades, not years. So, while the political will is there, the new fabs will take years to ramp up, and they might still lag behind the Asian giants. Our reliance on the Taiwan-Korea hub isn't going away anytime soon. The gap between political ambition and industrial reality is enormous. Let's zoom out and consider the biggest danger here, the precedent being set. By weaponizing technology at this scale, the US has proven that advanced chips are no longer just commodities. They are instruments of state power. This creates a deeply destabilizing dynamic. For the last 40 years, the global economic model was built on the idea that trade promotes peace. If we all rely on each other, we're less likely to go to war. By deliberately trying to create technological independence, world powers are removing a key reason to avoid conflict. Global companies like NVIDIA and ASML are now de facto arms of US foreign policy, forced to enforce security policies regardless of their own balance sheets. This fundamentally changes the relationship between Silicon Valley and Washington. It also creates a huge proliferation risk. If a nation can't buy the components for its next-gen fighter jet, it's going to be highly incentivized to steal them through industrial espionage or cyber attacks. The core question is, does pursuing short-term strategic advantage outweigh the long-term stability created by global trade? For now, the answer from Washington is a clear yes. We are prioritizing security over efficiency, and that choice is reshaping the entire map of the global economy. We started by looking at a tiny piece of silicon. We end by realizing it is the linchpin of the 21st century power struggle. The tech war over semiconductors isn't some theoretical battle for market share. It's a struggle for technological destiny. Whoever controls the manufacturing of next-generation chips will control the future of AI, military might, and economic influence. The key takeaways are simple. First, chips are the new oil, the critical resource that fuels all modern power. Second, the supply chain is the weapon. Control over the tools, design, and manufacturing hubs gives incredible strategic leverage. And third, sovereignty is the new goal. Every major power is now in a frantic multi-trillion-dollar race to control its own chip supply, even if it means sacrificing efficiency and global cooperation. This war is subtle. It's fought in boardrooms, regulatory documents, and the clean rooms of high-tech fabs. But the consequences will be felt globally, from the price of your next smartphone to the balance of military power in the South China Sea. This isn't just about building faster computers anymore. It's about designing a world where security reigns supreme. So what do you think? Is this move a necessary defense against the rising power, or a short-sighted act that will destroy the economic stability we've all benefited from? Is this the right way to manage strategic competition in the age of AI? Let me know your thoughts on this complex battle in the comments below. If you want to keep exploring the hidden forces shaping our world, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. Until next time, keep thinking critically about the tiny things that run our world.